I'm Jennifer Della Quadri, and this is the Raising Happy Teens podcast, where you learn how to successfully guide your teenager into adulthood without losing your sanity in the process. Let's do this. Welcome back to the podcast. Have you ever come across a total stranger and they just rubbed you the wrong way? Like they didn't do or say anything and they aren't even wearing anything or doing anything that's triggering to you. You're just put off by them for some reason. Come on, you know that that's happened to you. Let's be honest. It just happens. But what I want to offer to you is that when this happens, it's because you see something in them that you don't like in yourself. And whatever it is, it's just deeply ingrained in your subconscious mind and you aren't even aware of it. And you will be at the whim of whatever that subconscious thought is until you shine a light on it. When I was in yoga teacher training back in 2015, we did this exercise that was really uncomfortable, but it made an impact on me. So I thought I would share it with you. So what we did was this was the beginning of our training. There were probably about 25 to 30 of us, and none of us really knew anyone else. And we were told to just kind of wander around the room without, connecting with anyone or talking to anyone or anything like that. And then the instructor told us to put our hand on the shoulder of someone who just rubbed us the wrong way, who we were triggered by for some reason. And it was really uncomfortable because the people pleaser in me was like, oh my gosh, I don't want somebody to think how I really feel about them, especially if it's something negative, right? But then, we did that. And then we did the same thing with someone that we felt very comfortable around. And after we did this exercise, the reflection part of it was, what is it in each of these people that I see in myself? Because people are just mirrors to each of us. Everything you see in someone else, you can also see in yourself. And if it triggers you in a negative way, it's something that is subconsciously embedded in your brain that you don't even know of, that you don't like about yourself. So in this podcast episode, what I'm going to do is just talk a little bit about the concept of subconscious thoughts and their influence on parenting. I'm also going to give you some steps to bring awareness to these hidden patterns and really improve the interactions that you have with your teens. I've also created a free resource, a guide that you can download. It's in the show notes to kind of help you reflect upon this, is because this idea is a lot more than just hearing about it. To really put it in practice in your life, it takes a little bit of time. It takes a lot of awareness. And so that's why I've created this guide, so you can take it out of the podcast and really implement it into your life. And trust me, it will not only improve the relationships that you have with your kids, but also with your spouse, your partner, anyone else in your family, really anyone you come into contact with, because you're going to be a little more aware of who you are as a person, what makes you tick, and what ticks you off. All right. So now when it comes to parenting your teen, we all know we all have the best of intentions. We all do our very best to support our teen, to help them develop this confidence and resilience. But there may just be some things that you're doing that you aren't even aware of that impact your teenager. And there's a quote by Deepak Chopra that I really love, and it really does support this idea. And that is, every person you meet is a reflection of something you need to learn about yourself. So in essence, everyone you encounter in your life serves as a mirror. They reflect back to you various aspects of your own self. So whether you consciously recognize it or not, all of these interactions we have with other people, they reveal our own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So by just observing how you respond to and engage with different people, you can really learn a lot about your own inner landscape. Because the people we meet are not just these external entities, but they're really extensions of our own consciousness. They really present to us opportunities to confront these hidden sides of ourselves, to really just acknowledge both our positive and negative traits, and to really ultimately grow and evolve as individuals. So, like I said, this applies to total strangers as well as people we know very well. So, let's just talk a little bit about subconscious thoughts. Really, the subconscious mind is filled with all kinds of thoughts, beliefs. There's a lot of emotions in there. And most of them stem from experiences that we've had in our lives. And these deeply ingrained patterns, they operate below the surface of this conscious awareness that we have. And they influence how we act. They influence how we interact with other people without us even realizing it. So when it comes to parenting, these subconscious thoughts can show up in all kinds of ways, but here are just a few. So, an example would be to when you're reacting with anger or frustration to behaviors that remind you of your own struggles. Another example is when you are overprotecting your teen because of some unresolved fears and insecurities that you have from yourself, from your growing up, from your background. Another one is imposing your expectations and values onto your teen and disregarding their individuality. I've talked about that a lot on this podcast. Another is when you're struggling to communicate effectively because you're being emotionally triggered from something from the past. And like I said, so many of these things are under the surface. We don't even know. We just feel that emotion. And sometimes when I'm talking with my clients, when we're trying to get to the bottom of what's going on, the relational patterns that they're seeing, and they bring up a specific example, I'll ask them, hey, what kind of thoughts are going through your mind when that happens? And what's interesting is they'll respond by explaining a feeling that they're having. And what that tells me is that they're being driven by the feeling. Of course, we're all being driven by feelings all of the time. The feelings do come from thoughts that we have, but sometimes those thoughts are subconscious, so we don't even know what they are. So when my clients tell me the feeling that they're having instead of a thought, that shows me that they aren't even aware of the thought that's causing the feeling. So, how to get those subconscious thoughts and feelings and attitudes all out onto the surface? That's what I'm going to get into. So, the first step really is to identify them. Just bring awareness to them and recognize that they're there. That is such a huge step and it can make a huge impact. It doesn't sound like a big thing, but it's like uncovering something that's been buried under the surface. And when you can look at it and think about it with your conscious mind, think about it objectively, then you can really be proactive and responding versus reacting and allowing that darkness, that dark part of your thought patterns dictate how you behave in your life and with your teenager. But what this really requires is a willingness to do some self-reflection, introspection. That can be kind of hard because sometimes the things that come up aren't really great. Like, why did I really believe that? What was going on there? I don't like this about myself. And it's so easy to just set that aside and be like, I'm just going to like pretend that's not there. But that's just living your life on autopilot. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to be at the whim of your behaviors. You don't want to be at the whim of all of your emotions. It does require inner work to make these change. So you really need to start paying attention to your emotional reactions, to your parenting behaviors. And it's not always easy to do. So I'm here to help you out. Yes. And because it's the season of giving, like I said, part of what I'm talking about here, yes, listen to what I'm saying, but also download the free guide because it's going to give you the step-by-step and how to kind of get all of this clear in your mind. But here are a couple of questions to consider when you are wanting to identify your subconscious patterns. So one question you could ask yourself is, What specific behaviors or situations that happen with your teenager specifically trigger strong emotional reactions in you? Another question you can ask yourself is, are there any parenting styles or approaches that you find particularly challenging? Another question is, do you notice any similarities between your own childhood experiences and how you respond to your teenager? Also, something to consider is, what are your underlying fears and insecurities about parenting? That's a really big one. Because if you're anything like me, one of those underlying fears and insecurities is that I'm doing it wrong, that I'm messing up my kids, that I've made a huge mistake, or there's irreparable damage that's being done to the relationship because I don't know how to be a good parent. We all have that. But like I said, bringing it out into the open, being willing to admit that you have those insecurities and fears is a great first step. And my very favorite question, this is something that I ask my clients all of the time when they are recognizing that they're being triggered by their teen, is what is it in myself that I see in my teenager, and how does it impact my parenting? So let's apply this idea to your teenager. Let's say that your teen is really disorganized. They lose things, they forget things, and their room is a mess. And whenever you see this, you just feel really super frustrated. Now, on the surface, it could be just, I really like order. I really prefer things to be clean. And that, yes, that's true. Sure. But the frustration that you're feeling comes from more than that. And it does impact how you respond to the situation. Now, let's say on the other hand, let's say your teen is really charismatic, really confident, and you admire them for this, and you trust that they're going to be able to handle whatever comes their way, all of the ups and downs in life. So now let's turn it around in these two scenarios. Here's this question that you can ask yourself. What is it in myself that I see in my teenager, and how does it impact my parenting? So going back to this first example where the teen is disorganized, where in your life are you disorganized? Where in your life do you feel disorganized? And when you think about this, how does it feel to you? That feeling left unchecked will impact how you show up for your teenager. That frustration is more than just being sick of a messy room. It's triggering something deep within you that you dislike about yourself. Now, on to the second example, when the teen is confident and charismatic. When in your life do you feel confident and charismatic? And when you think about this, how do you feel about yourself? Again, that feeling is buried into your subconscious mind, and it dictates how you respond to your teenager. So, how do we keep our subconscious thoughts from negatively impacting how we parent our teenager? Like I said, it all starts with awareness. Once you've identified potential subconscious patterns, the next step is to bring them into the conscious awareness. And a few ways to do this is one is journaling. Just regularly reflecting on your parenting experiences, noticing your thoughts, feelings, reactions. And I know for some of you, journaling isn't your jam. I totally get that. Some people are more auditory processors. A lot of my clients are auditory processors. And when we're on a call and they start processing these thoughts, they come to the answer and they come to the awareness on their own. It's just being given the opportunity to process it auditorially. And if you don't want to do that with a person, or you're not ready to, you can just speak into your phone and then just delete it later if you're afraid somebody's going to find it. So you can write it down, you can draw about it, you can talk about it. That's all different forms of journaling. Another thing you could do is to ask for feedback. I kind of laugh about this because this in and of itself can be triggering. Because when you're actually inviting someone else, even if it's someone you trust, to give you their honest perspective on your parenting style, you're really opening yourself up for criticism, and you need to be prepared for that. But know that if you're really asking somebody who you trust and who loves you, know that whatever they're pointing out to you is done out of love versus judgment. So choosing the person wisely is a really important factor. But being open to the fact that you're not perfect, nobody's perfect, And sometimes other people can see the things that you're not seeing. Another really great practice is to engage in mindfulness, exercises in mindfulness, like meditation or deep breathing, just to really bring more self awareness. I just recently started working with a new client, and there's a lot of stress. It's a couple, and there's a lot of stress in their life. They've got a lot going on. They've got a lot going on with their kids, and their homework was to practice meditation. Because in order to really gain control over the situation with your teen, you need to gain control over the situation you have going on inside of you. So, practicing mindfulness, whatever that may be, I have a podcast episode that's all about meditation. I recommend you check that out. But that's a great way to just become more aware. And like I mentioned before, talk to a professional, whether it's a coach or a therapist. Really being able to talk about the things that are kind of buried deep down can help you just be more aware of the patterns. I was recently on a coaching call with a mom of three teenagers, and she was finding herself being triggered. And I asked her, it was really being triggered by this one specific teenager that she had. And I asked her to reflect on what of her traits she saw in this teenager. And then the other teenager where she wasn't being triggered, I asked her to reflect on that as well. And as it turns out, the teen that she was triggered by exhibited some of the things my client didn't like about herself. So it was like this light bulb moment, like the light bulb literally went off above her head, like ding. Oh my gosh, I get it. This is why I'm so triggered by this behavior, by this, what she's doing. And she really wanted to turn things around. So once she realized it, she was able to step back, separate herself from her teenager and her teenager's behavior, and then consciously decide in advance how to show up for her. And so also in my free resource, I give some examples of things that can be done once you recognize, hey, I get triggered by this, bring it into the awareness. Here's what I'm going to do when I notice that I'm being triggered so that I can calm down and respond versus react. And like I said, just bringing those thoughts into the conscious awareness is how you can really begin to understand the impact these thoughts are having on your parenting and really take proactive steps to manage them effectively, which can really lead to better communication with your teen, reduced emotional reactivity, better problem solving, more empathy and understanding of your teenager and their perspective, and really just a more mindful and intentional approach to parenting. And as you know, it's really complex and challenging to raise a child from birth all the way through adulthood. But it's also what I love about it. It's a really great opportunity for personal growth and transformation. I know I've learned more about myself in parenting my girls than I ever knew before becoming a parent. And it's by understanding and addressing the influence of these subconscious thoughts where we can really become more effective parents, build stronger relationships with our teens, and support them as they go through these challenges of the teen years, of adolescence, young adulthood. And as always, remember, parenting is not about perfection. It's about continuous learning, growth, and connection. And that's what this concept is all about. Again, click on the link in the show notes to download the free resource. And I appreciate you tuning in. I'll see you next time. If you liked this episode, I want to invite you to follow me on Instagram at jennifer.delaquadri, where you'll find more tips, inspiration, and connection to help you navigate this unique and sometimes challenging season of parenthood. I'll see you there.